as Jeff alluded to a little bit just a couple of seconds ago, this is hopefully we're gonna return to some time in the physical location. So I think just naturally the online content time would be decreased. I don't definitely think the whole staff I think is in support of continuing the online content in some fashion beyond you know the returning to the gym. But the frequency might be down a little bit. So this is maybe one of our last seminars, and it kind of came out of the requests of the membership base to talk about sleep. And I think that a long time ago, when I first got into CrossFit, a lot of different fitness paradigms for me kind of changed. So I think that one of those things was kind of, that sort of comes along with CrossFit is the focus of emphasis away from high fat diets, like as being bad, and high carbohydrates diets as being good, and just like kind of a paradigm shift of like, hey, it's okay, you need, that mayo isn't going to kill you, it's like the bag of chips you're having with your sandwich sort of situation, or the bag of gummy worms for me, or whatever it was. But anyway, what I'm kind of getting at is that sleep was one of those things that I guess I was enlightened to around that change when I went from like traditional personal training kind of background into like a CrossFit, functional fitness, diverse sort of, I guess, experience for me. And I read this book, Lights Out: Sleep, Sugar, and Survival, a really long time ago. And I think that like when authors take these topics, they want, it's their job to be compelling. So it seems like, if you read the obesity code about like intermittent fasting and different stuff like that, you would think that anything that deviated from that is just crazy talk. And I think that Lights Out can kind of have a little bit of that impact. It can be so like, look, sleep is so important, that when if you do choose to read it, or if you're going to read it, just kind of be like, I understand that this is coming from someone who is trying to bring people away from the other side. Um, that being said, I think it's a really good read, and rereading it in preparation for this presentation really kind of reopened my own eyes about the importance of sleep. And I think that one of the things that I try to always do is like empathy wise is like something that works for me. I'm going to try to impart on my clients, or something that I think is really important, I'm going to share with them, rather than just pushing something that I don't necessarily believe in for myself. So anyway, obviously I put together a presentation. So I guess we'll just start with that. Let's see. To Also, I was on probably the most Zoom that I have been on, uh, the most Zoom that I have been on since the quarantine today. And I just think like I have a total appreciation for like my wife, or other people that are on here like constantly. I mean, we've had meetings that lasted as long as 2 hours, and maybe like that was in conjunction with like a class I taught or whatever. But like today is today is a day. Anyway, so I have a lot of appreciation for the people that have to do that. So here is the presentation. Tried to dress it up this time. All right, sleep. And we have a cat and a dog sleeping. I also used Wally as a cheap pop to try to get people to sign up. Or not Wally, but one of Wally's offspring. What's the big deal? I'll sleep when I'm dead. I remember somebody telling me that, and I was like, I don't know if that's super sound logic, but anyway, here it goes. Here's me debunking that logic of what's the big deal. I'll sleep when I'm dead. All right, so I took these three quotes because I thought that they were really impactful. So I'll just read the quotes and I'll give you a little bit of background behind them. So sleep is just as important as nutrition and exercise when it comes to improving your health, performance, and body composition. So this is from a registered dietitian that writes for articles for Precision Nutrition, and I think that it's a bold statement, but I think that it's also like probably not really taken seriously by a lot of people. And I think that there is compelling evidence to back that up. So meaning that we spend a lot of effort and attention on our nutrition and our, I mean, we did it. I just did it. I did like what? I did 7 presentations on nutrition and we're doing 1 on sleep. So, right, whatever. I think that it's important to it's an interesting lens to look at sleep through. There are at least 10 different hormones as well as many more neurotransmitters that go sideways when you don't sleep enough. And I think that that's like the big thing. And that's from Lights Out, Sleep, Sugar, and Survival. It's just going into all of those hormones and different things that happen when you sleep. We're going to scratch the surface in this presentation, but it's very eye-opening. And then another author of an article, a doctor that just says that works for the National Center on Sleep Disorders Research, and just saying that sleep is just as important for overall health as diet and exercise. So kind of echoing that point of the importance of sleep. So I just thought that that would be a good way to introduce just like what professionals thought as far as, a registered dietitian, somebody that does nutrition for a living, talks about sleep as just as important as his field. So I think that to me is really moving. So here are some specifics in different ways that sleep can affect us, our health, performance, and nutrition. I'm sorry, our health, performance, and wellness. Poor sleep habits have been linked to the following: hormonal imbalances, which was talked about in the quote on the previous slide, obesity and type 2 diabetes. So there's a study done in 2010 with men that are 32 to 49 that they said that men who got less than 7 hours of sleep had like twice as great a risk for obesity, insulin resistance, and then let me quote one of these studies I have here. 11 healthy men in their 20s were allowed 4 hours of sleep for 6 straight nights. So men in their 20s are probably like, you have the most testosterone in your body and you are like a muscle building machine. Like your insulin levels are good, like everything's rocking and rolling. 11 healthy men in their 20s were allowed 4 hours of sleep for 6 straight nights. At the end of the study, the men had the insulin sensitivity of a 70-year-old pre-diabetic. So that is significant. Like I'm not, that's 6 straight nights, right? So 6 straight nights. I am not confident that I could program poor enough nutrition to do that to you in over a 6-day time. I really don't think I could do it. Like Morgan Spurlock did it in Super Size Me, like with the McDonald's situation, and I'm not confident that his insulin resistance had that dramatic of an effect in 6 days. Like that's a big deal. Anyway, decreased growth hormone, increased cortisol, which cortisol like is like the hormone, like it needs to be there, right? There's a purpose for it, but elevated levels of cortisol beyond a normal range contribute to adipose tissue accumulation, specifically in like a saddlebag area in women and a love handle area in men. So the things that both, I think, kind of sexes are kind of like, that's not something I'm cool with. Like, so that's an interesting thing there. Elevated sympathetic nerve activity, which is going to contribute directly to your recovery from exercise. I have another picture I like. Insufficient thyroid stimulating hormone, which means you're going to have an overactive thyroid, which can mean weight control issues. Lowered leptin, which can mean you're hungry more of the time. Irritability, obviously. Someone moving my mouse? Oh, hold on a second. Right. Sorry. I think Reed is doing a presentation for his grandparents in the other room using the cordless mouse, and it was moving my screen. So I turned my Bluetooth off. I think that'll be good for him. I hear cries of frustration. Decreased focus, sleep drunk. So I'm going to quote another study. Going 24 hours without sleep is similar to performing with a blood alcohol level of 0.10. So I think that's bad. So, people who are going like 24 hours without sleep, like different shift workers or maybe different first responders or hospital workers or frontline workers right now, that's just something to think about. Poor exercise performance, kind of duh. If you have poor growth hormone stimulation when you're sleeping, you're not going to grow muscle. So that's bad. And I'm still not done. So now I have an EKG. You have a greater risk for heart attack, stroke, and sudden cardiac death, like an electrical system of the heart goes haywire. So it's different than a heart attack. It's another situation there that you could have a greater risk for with poor sleep. And then I just put this. So like the recommended sleep is a minimum of 7 hours up to 9 hours. Some people benefit from more than 9 hours, kind of depending on what stage of your sleep cycle you wake up in. Like if you go like past 9 hours to maybe 10 hours and you wake up in a deep sleep stage, you might be groggy and that extra hour might not have been that beneficial. But if you wake up at a good time and you go, like I read an article one time that said Roger Federer slept 12 hours a night. So clearly he had some good athletic performance and longevity in obviously the sport of tennis, and what that's worth. But minimum of 7, 9, I guess kind of optimal there, would increase the positive and decrease the negatives of everything we just said, right? So if you're getting good sleep and you're getting enough sleep, then you would have a lower risk of heart attack, a lower risk for stroke, increased growth hormone when you want it, decreased cortisol when you want it, and so on. Lack of sleep. This is another quote. I didn't source it. I'm really sorry, but it was from one of the articles that I came across when I was prepping for this. It said the lack of sleep usually reflects our priorities rather than our real constraints. At first, I had the picture of the DJ at the party, and then I was like, I guess that's not going to be happening. So let me make this more applicable to 2020 and our demographic. So I did this little guy, I guess, at nighttime on the computer screen and talk about kind of some ways to make sleep quality a little bit better. But I think that it's almost common knowledge that we shouldn't be drowning our eyes in blue light right before we close them before bed. All right, so what can you do to make sleep better? So let's first assess the situation. Are you having sleep issues, right? So if not, then you might not need to focus a lot of energy on this, and you can focus it on your nutrition and your exercise. But if you are, then you can move forward with some of these steps. Oh, it's in the wrong order. Poop. Oh, well. Poor presentation skills from me. I guess we'll go through waking first. It's because I had waking over here and I moved the boxes because I thought I wanted to go through going to bed first in the logical order of things. But so wake at the current time of your sleep cycle. Wake to increasing light or increasing sound, and I put a little there's a really fun little alarm clock that gets a lot of really high reviews on Amazon that increases the light and then increases the sound to based off of when you want to wake up. And there's also settings on it that will kind of range your sleep cycle based off of your breathing pattern. And if you have a flexible wake up time, you can set it to wake up during like optimal stages of your sleep cycle. I think getting moving right away, like hitting the snooze button can like cause like sleep inertia and it can kind of really screw you up. So like just like sitting up and putting your feet on the floor right away, I think is kind of a good way to kind of get moving in the morning. And then when you can get in front of actual sunlight, so your body's natural response hormones can kind of tell it it's time to wake up. All right, and going to bed. So we'll go through going to bed second. I put be careful of caffeine and alcohol. So the study that I came across said that 1 to 2 drinks did not seem to have a negative effect on sleeping. So I think people think like, okay, I'm not advocating this. I'm just saying that a half a glass of wine before bed, like whatever, to help me sleep actually maybe does that. I don't know. The accumulation of a half a glass of wine for like every day of the year is a lot of wine. So I'm not advocating that, but I am saying that further than 2 drinks have been shown to interrupt sleep patterns and make sleep of less quality. Um, and then I found a 2 p.m. cutoff for caffeine. That's not saying people necessarily go to bed at midnight. Those are actually two different recommendations I'm actually kind of combining. So a 2 p.m. cutoff is a recommendation for someone that goes to bed, I think, at 9 o'clock. So it would be 7 hours after the caffeine. Caffeine has a half life of different lengths of different people, and like smokers can actually have less response to caffeine, and it can vary. But the average half life of caffeine in someone is like 5 hours. So if you want the caffeine to be totally out of your system, you have to go to sleep 10 hours after you have the caffeine. Um, I, the study said screens off 30 minutes before bed, but I've actually read anecdotal evidence that says that even further than 30 minutes before bed with blue light. You can they have settings that decrease. There's a computer program called Flux, and there's settings on your phone that kind of decrease your exposure to blue light, like late in the evening. So that's something to think about. But just as far as a mental stimulation sort of situation, even if you have the blue light taken away or the LED light taken away with special glasses or special settings, the stimulation of the screen is still triggering things that are going to cause disruptions in the sleep. Now, books aren't great either. Like, I'm not saying books aren't great. Like, let me back that up. Like a very compelling mystery novel or like a very maybe like tense argument with someone right before bed can actually disrupt sleep patterns too. So be careful with what you're kind of getting into right before sleep. Um, Nonetheless, like the screen's off 30 minutes before bed. I think a compelling novel is way better before bed than drowning through blue light and Instagram. Limit fluids 2 to 3 hours prior to bedtime. If you don't really have a problem with waking and going to the bathroom, that is not necessarily like you can drink kind of right up until bed. However, if you do think about, limiting fluid 2 hours before bedtime, 3 hours seems to be a bit impractical for most people. If you do have a lot on your mind, sometimes writing it down on a piece of paper or a journal, clearing your head before bed can kind of both help you fall asleep and help you stay asleep. There is data to support both cold and hot showers being beneficial before sleep. So kind of whatever works for you. And an Epsom salt bath, Epsom salt infused with lavender would be even more helpful. And it is very relaxing. I do it sometimes myself. Sometimes I do it in the afternoon and then I get really sleepy, which is not helpful sometimes. And then I also think that both stretching helps me kind of unwind. It gives me time away from a screen or whatever. Like I usually do like a quick child's pose and two pigeon poses, like literally in the bed, before bed. It takes like 4 minutes. It helps like my hips feel better, and it also kind of helps take me away from a screen, or it helps me kind of stretch or meditate a little bit before bed there. And then environment, you can go dark with no light, no LED light specifically. You can cover up your alarm clock with like a towel or something. uh Cold, 67 degrees is optimal, but there's a good range, 66 to 72. If it's like, if you can get your house down to 67 degrees in the summer in Louisiana, good on you. But like 66 to 72, I guess, is a range of, almost optimal benefits. Quiet or white noise, unfortunately, some of us can't get out of, like, we live kind of close to train tracks or whatever. So like having a white noise machine can be really helpful. And then keep like developing a good routine is good. I know it's impossible for most, but if you can't go to sleep at the same time every night, it's good. uh, Hours of sleep at night are more beneficial to the human body based off of circadian rhythms than hours of sleep waking. So if you can go to bed earlier and wake up or early to sleep, early to rise, is kind of true. Not kind of, it is true. Um, Exercise daily helps you sleep better at night. And mobilizing, like I said, if you have really tight hips or back or neck or shoulders, it can be really difficult to get in a good comfortable sleeping position. And getting 5 to 10 minutes of direct sunlight a day can kind of help you do the right things for your waking hormones. We talked about sleeping, like being in a cold dark cave all day long is not good for your waking hormonal balance, so that can mess things up too. So in conclusion, I think the importance of sleep is often ranked last behind exercise and nutrition as the least important aspect of health and fitness, if it's even ranked at all. Solid sleep could be the key to better performance, health, and quality of life. Specifically, if you feel like you're doing the other two things really well and you've hit some sort of plateau, or your gains aren't going as quickly, or you're even regressing. So that is the end of my slideshow. Um, I think that I talked a lot. And if you guys have any questions, I hope to be able to answer them. Or if you would like to add anything, I welcome your comments. I've had a really great time doing these things. It has definitely helped me as a professional to re-up my game on research, to be able to present in such detail on specific topics rather than just answering questions one-on-one at the gym, or just like kind of giving general knowledge to the gym class, or working with a one-on-one client. So it's really been a blessing to be able to do these and to kind of get to see people and connect with other people. So that being said, if you guys have anything or any questions, or any future topics you would like to talk about, like I said, I don't think we'll do it as frequently, but we will continue. So you guys should unmute yourselves if you want to speak.
I got that sleep cycle app that Kyle recommended last week or 2 weeks ago, whenever it was.
Yeah.
And it was super interesting because I think I was overestimating how much time I was sleeping.
Uh-huh.
Because I wasn't really taking into account how frequently I was waking up during the night.
Yeah.
So it was just really interesting. So thanks, Kyle, because I'm using it.
Do you just put it by your bed, Kyle? Is that right?
Yep. Yeah, you just point the microphone towards you, and it listens to your sleep pattern. And like you talked about earlier, if you have a flexible, so I set mine at about a 15-minute flex time. And within that 15 minutes, it'll figure when the best time is to actually slowly start waking me up, so that it's not waking me up inside that
I'm going to download it right now.
And there are some, I think, I can't remember if it was if it was a one-time price. I think you pay for it once a year. It's like $6 or something, because I think you can do it without, but then you're going to get a lot of ad stuff. And the newest few things they have in there is you can actually click on, all right, I drank a little bit tonight. I had an argument. I had a really tough work day. And you can actually click on all of that as this is what happened to me today. And it will take that into effect in regards to how it sees your sleep pattern. The other kind of funny, cool thing is that if you do snore, it tells you how long you did, and it actually records you for a small amount of time, so you can actually hear your breathing and snoring pattern. It's kind of interesting.
What? Tell me the name of it again.
It's called Sleep Cycle, and it's an orange icon with an old school alarm clock in the middle of it. That's just very simply drawn.
Perfect. I think that there was like a couple of other ones that were brought up in that informal talk about at the end of the nutrition talk, and I tried to download one and I didn't. Wait, maybe I did. Anyway, but thank you. I'm gonna get it.
Do you want to say something?
Do you guys sleep a lot?
I thought I was sleeping like 8 to 9 hours a night, and it was more like 7.
Yeah.
So it was just interesting to see, and it actually motivated me when I woke up during the night to be like, no, don't look at your phone. Try to go back to sleep because it's tracking you.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to not put myself in like restriction stay at home mode. Like I try to think back of like regular time, and I had a polar tracker that differentiated sleep and restless sleep, and it was pretty. I was like, oh, like half of it was restless sleep. Like I got like 4 hours of quality sleep out of 6.5 or whatever. And I think that like tracking it is helpful to prioritize it. If you have some sort of neat gizmo or gadget that kind of like you like playing with and you like exploring or whatever, it kind of helps you make the whatever the issue is that you got the gizmo or gadget for one of your priorities. I know that I don't sleep. It hasn't been horrible during quarantine, but like if I'm being honest, like during regular life, it is not even close to like if the effort that I give exercise and the effort I give nutrition, like not even in the neighborhood. And I think getting older, it matters like probably more.
Yeah. Well, the weather's been really nice
Yeah,
too. It's been easier to keep the house cool.
Yeah.
Like you're talking about ideal temperature. I was like, I don't think in the summer our house gets below like 78 max. Like we run fans all night. But it like lately, because the weather's been so good, it's easy to keep the temperature low in the evening.
Yeah, I do think people are getting outside a little bit more. People who maybe had office jobs that can't go into the office jobs are like getting outside, and then people who maybe like didn't have office jobs but didn't like socialize more. They just need to get out of their house. Um, and that's probably healthy for a lot of people, especially if you're sitting on Zoom for like 6 hours a day. I'm trying to think if there's anything really interesting. I think I pulled out the most compelling stuff. I thought that the insulin resistance thing I thought was a pretty big deal. I was like, I don't think that I've had 4 hours in a row 6 straight nights, but like, I mean, I've had 4 hours in a row in 2 straight nights in stretches before, and I mean that can't be good. But I do know that probably people in our community, maybe people on the call, have situations where they're 4 hours, for 6 straight nights, and like being like, oh, my body comp isn't where I want it to be, and every single macronutrient is perfect, and every second of every minute of every exercise routine is perfect. Like, what's going on is like, this might be the answer for you. But anyway, all right, y'all. Well, thanks for being on the call.